All right, let's see if this works. As soon as anyone hears or sees anything, please let me know. And also if my audio is loud enough and anything else. Until then, I'm just gonna sit here, staring off to the side. Awkwardly drinking water. Dude, I don't know why this is so nerve-wracking. It's complaining a bit about my Wi-Fi, so let's see how this goes. Am I just sitting in a room, talking to myself, watching myself on the camera? I don't know how much delay is on this stream. Anyways, I'm just gonna assume that this works until someone tells me otherwise, and I'm just gonna start. So I wanna work a bit on Arcanist. It mostly works, but okay, now someone responded. I'm not sure how much delay is on the stream. But yeah, I'm just gonna continue. Let me know if the audio is kind of choppy or if it's okay. Anyways, so I want to work a bit on Arcanist, specifically. Well, I guess since no one but me has actually seen the package before, I should maybe give a quick introduction or something. So Arcanist is a package that kind of provides a way to create and manage multi-step forms like wizards. And I already have a working implementation. I wrote it for a problem at work, and I decided to pull it out into a separate package. And there are a few things that now need to be changed for this to be usable outside of our project. And there were also a few rough edges that I kind of want to smooth over before I release it. All right. All good. Cool. Oh, there's 7 people watching. This is amazing. Okay. So here's the plan. This is kind of difficult to explain to someone who has never seen this package before. So basically, Arcanist is made up of a few components. This is like my local version of the documentation that I'm currently writing. Most of these links are basically just empty pages. But I more or less finished a page on wizards, which is kind of the top level component. And the way this works is that the wizard kind of groups together a bunch of steps, right? So the individual steps in this wizard form. And it's the one that's sort of orchestrating all the navigation between routes. So if you submit a form, it handles like navigating you to the next step in the wizard. And so one important design decision I've made when writing this package is that this wizard component, this top level component, isn't actually what is performing the action that the wizard is supposed to do. So let me give you an example. Like I have a crappy like demo application that I kind of wrote just to sort of, one, test this myself locally, and two, I want to turn this into a demo application for the package itself. So this is like a registration wizard, right? It has 3 steps. Pick a username, choose a subscription plan, and like a dummy step. The thing is that the wizard component itself does not actually create the user. It does not subscribe the user to a plan. It does basically nothing. So if I just go through here and say I select my username, it's Kai, and then I can pick a plan, right? And of course I'm picking the sucker plan. And then once I'm at the last step, this is again just a dummy step. If I were to click next, like up until this point, nothing has actually happened. No user has been created, no subscription has been created. But the wizard is kind of keeping track of the state of this form. So you can see like it knows that steps 1 and 2 are done, and I can navigate back to them and change my selection. If I enter like an invalid, there's like form validation, so if I leave this empty, it'll complain. But up until now, nothing has actually happened. So things only really happen when once you finish the last step in a wizard. Once I click next, currently it's just going to throw like I think it's redirecting to a page that doesn't exist, so it's just going to be a 404. But this 404 is actually the result of the thing that I want to work on tonight. So let me show you in the code what I mean. So this is what the oh, this is a step. Oh my god, things are fucking huge. I hope this is readable to everyone. I'm about to go blind. This is so big. Yeah, this one. So this is the entire wizard class for this sign-up wizard you just saw. Right, the wizard basically just defines a bunch of metadata like what's the title, right? Join the fun. This is the thing that you saw here. The slug is the thing that you see in the URL up here. And it just defines a bunch of steps. There's no logic in here, right? Because the wizard isn't doing anything. So what actually happens once you finish the last step in a wizard is, let's go into the base class, the abstract wizard. This is where most of the interesting stuff happens. And you're basically just overriding these properties to configure your particular wizard. But most of the logic actually happens in here, and most of the time you will never have to worry about this. So one of the things you can configure is this onComplete action. This is, right now, this is just a class. Any class, I think it needs to have like an execute method or something. And the default implementation is just like action does nothing, just so it doesn't crash. But this is the thing that actually gets called once you finish the last step in the form. And it gets passed all the data that the user entered in each of these steps. Right? So the wizard itself basically just configures the payload that then gets handed to this action at the very end. And the action is where all the interesting stuff happens. The action is where I would actually create the user and subscribe them to a plan. Right, so all the business logic would happen in there. There's a few advantages. So one advantage is that you can now just test the action on its own, like individually. Which is a very easy test because it has nothing to do with the form anymore, right? This is just a class that takes some payload and needs to do some things. It has nothing to do with Arcanist, basically. So this makes it fairly straightforward to test. It also means that I can, this whole wizard form handling thing can now be generalized quite a bit because all the custom business logic stuff that is different for each wizard kind of got extracted to some other thing. So what's left is very generic, right? All this form handling, navigating to the next step, validating the request payload, all that stuff is the same for basically every wizard. So this can all happen inside the package, so you will never have to worry about this. And so what I want to do today is, the way this class currently gets called is, so if I go into the update method, this is what gets called once you submit one of the forms for a step. We go into this method. And down here it checks, okay, so, and it basically just persists the data that was submitted, right? So you can then reference it later. And then it checks if this was the last step in the form. This means now additional stuff needs to happen. And right now, it's firing an event, this wizard finishing event. And there's a listener on this event, and it's called like call on wizard complete action. This is the wizard. Sorry, this is the listener that listens on this wizard finishing event, and it is nasty. I hate this. So this basically grabs the action from the wizard that is currently finishing, and it resolves it out of the container, and then it calls the execute method on it, passing in the form data that the wizard has collected. And this is where it gets really nasty. This is a thing I really hate. So to give you a bit of context, usually what you will want to do is in your wizard, once the last step has finished, you want to redirect the user somewhere. The thing is that it's probably quite often the case that you want to redirect the user to a route for a model that was only just created inside this action, right? So if I have this registration flow, I would want to redirect the user maybe to the profile page, but maybe this profile page needs the user ID. And I don't know the user ID because it was created inside this action class. And the action class was called from some event listener, so there's really no way I can get this information inside the wizard, right? Usually what I want to do is like say, redirect to function. Oh my God, everything's so slow. Redirect to. And now the problem is that what if I want to do like, I don't know, route like, dear Lord, route user's profile, but this route like needs a user. Where do I get this user from? This user was created inside this, inside the action, which was called by the listener, which is like a completely different context, right? And so like my really ugly hack is you can set data on the wizard. And so I've kind of abused this this mechanism to like set the return value of the action in some fucking random, or it's like magic string, right? It's just called completed payload, and you just have to know that it's called that. And if you have a field inside your form which happens to be called completed payload, it'll be overwritten, right? This is a horrible solution. So this is kind of what I want to work on today. There's also another problem with this, and that's what happens if this action throws an exception, right? Maybe you can't create the user because the credit card got declined. Currently, you don't really have a way inside your wizard to even catch this exception because it happens outside of the wizard. So this will just crash, basically, which sucks. So I want a way to where I can get this like return value of the action more easily, and secondly, I want a way to like gracefully handle errors. And so here's an example of documentation-driven design. I have actually documented the feature that I'm about to implement now. Like I've just written the documentation as if this feature already existed, like in the way I would like it to work. So basically down here in wizard-specific redirects, down here. So a couple things change. There's an on-after complete method on this abstract wizard that you can implement. You might see that's the thing that gets called down here. So after this listener ran, it's sort of a hook, basically. And currently this is a public, sorry, it's a protected function, but it doesn't take any parameters, so I can't really do anything interesting here. So what changed is that it now takes like an action result parameter. This thing doesn't exist yet. There is no class called action result. I just made that up because I need something like this here. And in this action that I've kind of given as an example, it now extends from a wizard action class that also doesn't exist yet, which returns something of type wizard result, which also doesn't exist yet. So this is kind of the API I'm going for. Like I want to have, I want the wizard to call I want the wizard to call this action itself. And then this action will no longer be just a random class. It will actually be something, a wizard action. So I know like I have known types that I deal with, and I have a nicer API where I can say like this success and this error or this failure, right? And then I can handle that accordingly. So that gives me my error handling. This is like a very, I have no idea if anyone understood what the fuck I just explained. But hopefully it'll either become clear or it'll at least be entertaining, or neither, and you just leave. And I'm just end up talking to myself. Like I'm fine with all of these cases. So if you have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat, and then some unknown number of seconds or minutes later, I might see it. Okay. So let's actually, this is the demo application, so let's switch to the actual package. Okay. So this is the abstract wizard class that you will inherit from when you implement your own wizards. And so what we want to change is basically the handling when the last step of the wizard was finished. So I want something like call the onAfter complete action here, right? Which is currently outside of this class. And then I also have to implement all these all these wizard actions and action result classes. So let's see. Hello. I am going to butcher your name. I am so sorry. Andres? I think that's close enough. Okay, so let's, I really like TDD, and so I am going to do it the test-driven way, at least I'm going to try. So one thing that I thought about this for a bit, and there are a few issues that that might arise. One is I really want, so currently this action gets resolved out of the Laravel container, which means you can type in things in the constructor, and I definitely want to keep this. Which means I kind of need to move this dependency inside the abstract wizard class, like the container dependency, which I really dislike. I want to avoid depending. I want to avoid depending on the container whenever I can, because that's basically depending on everything. It's just hidden. So this is a problem, or it can be a problem. I think this is the biggest problem right now. So I could, wait, where am I? Here. I could just inject it into the base class, right? So I could add it here and say like, I don't know, container, and then whichever one it is. And that would work, right? I feel like that's the better solution than just like grabbing the container from some random method. So why is it a problem? It's not a problem in the sense that it'll break things. I just don't like that design. Because if you depend on the container, you basically depend on everything, right? Because you can, in theory, grab everything from the container. So it's really kind of, it hides what you're actually depending on. And it's always weird to me when you have things like this. You just have two dependencies, right? And then you have the container. Like at that point, I'm like, okay, why even have these two dependencies? Because you could just grab them from the container yourself, right? It's weird to me. Like I don't like this because it's such a massive dependency. It also makes testing really annoying because now you have to either set up the container in a test so it returns the thing you want, or like pass in a mock or something. So I kind of want to avoid this, and but I think I'm just going to go for that for now, just so I have a working solution, and then I'll try to refactor. So let's not try and solve every problem at once. Like I know Laravel does this sometimes, and I've done it in Venture, for example. But again, I try to avoid it unless it's absolutely necessary, because it is a very, very big foot gun. Okay, so let's try and write a test for what I want. So wizard test. Wizard. Where's my test? What the hell? Are you kidding me? There we go. Okay, so there's quite a few tests here. So normally I would have, there's a package by Spatie called PHP Unit Watcher, which I really, really like, which basically reruns the test suite or a section of your test suite whenever you save a file. Unfortunately, when I'm streaming and screen sharing, this just takes forever. So it's basically unusable for me, so I'll have to like run the tests individually. Let me read through this. I'm not really sure if it's the Laravel way. Wait, I think I can do this in StreamYard. I can. Wow, look at that. I'm a professional streamer. So using app in the event listener is Laravel way. I'm not sure if it's the Laravel way. I feel like Laravel is rather like cavalier about grabbing stuff from the container, which I think is okay because it's the framework, right? But I feel like less comfortable doing this in a third-party app. But again, this is more of a, I just don't like that design rather than a things will break if you do this. So how do I get rid of this? Oh, wow, it's so intuitive. Okay, so there is a test here somewhere that tests that this event is thrown, and so it's a fires an event after the last of the wizard was finished. Okay, so this is going to stay the same. I still want to fire the event because even though I'm not going to use it anymore, I feel like events are a nice way to kind of hook into the, it makes it very extensible, right? I don't see any disadvantage in keeping that here. But I want to have a new test. Now I need to think about what I actually want to test here. So I guess it's really just that the action was called, right? That's at least this is a beginning, and then I can work from this. So it calls the on after complete action. Oh wow, this isn't typing. The second delay is amazing. Complete action. After the I am very verbose when it comes to my test names, as you might have noticed. The list was submit. Well, it's not submitted, it's submitted. No, that's correct. Okay, and so the way I like to write my tests is I actually start from the bottom up. So I write the assertion first, right? So like under which conditions should this test pass? So I want to verify that this action was called. So the easiest way to do this would be to just have a spy and then say like, should have received. I usually dislike this this type of assertion as the only assertion because it like very tightly couples you to the specific implementation. But in this case, like it's literally what I care about. So I'm gonna have some action spy here that I haven't created yet, and this should have received execute, right? That's what I decided this would be called. Yeah. I guess eventually I will want to check that it has received like a specific payload, but for now, just to get started, let's just say it was called once. So when should it have been called? Well, when I submit the last step of the wizard, and it's basically the exact same test as this event test up here. It's just a different assertion. So I have a bunch of these like fake wizard classes for testing purposes. And this one has 2 steps. And basically I'm going to submit the second step. And this should trigger this on after complete action. So step with view data, that is the last step in this wizard. And this should trigger this whole, it was the last step, I need to do things. So I don't have action spy currently, which is going to be, I don't have mockery. Okay, so it's going to be a spy. So I know Laravel changed like the import order to use alphabetic order. I just want to say that's wrong. Sorting by length will always be the correct way to do it. I will die on this hill. Okay, so I have a spy. Now the question is where does the wizard even get the spy from? So just to get something working, I'm just going to do what I want to avoid, basically, and that's just like register this thing into the container. So when the wizard tries to resolve it, it'll get my spy. Let's see. I think the test wizard does not have any explicit. Didn't override what this action is, which means it uses the default, which is null action. So that's what we want to register into the container, because that's what it's trying to resolve. So I know PHP Storm has like bookmarks. I never really had the patience to figure out how they work. So I want to register null action. This, by the way, this test is very likely to change. I am not too concerned with getting this right. I just want to have something that I can like iterate on, right? I just want to have some test that, even though it's kind of ugly and the implementation is shit, it tests what it's supposed to test, and then I can work my way towards the solution that I actually want. I think a very big mistake is to try and solve every problem at once. So, okay, when you request a null action class, you get that my spy. And then after I submit the last step of this form, the spy should have been called once. The execute method should have been called. Okay, let's see. So yeah, I can't use my PHP Unit Watcher, so I'm going to have to run these tests like individually, which is going to be really slow. I'm just waiting for my terminal to boot up. Wow, this is close to M1 performance. There we go. Holy crap. So I think PHP Unit, you can actually filter not only on classes, but on test names as well. So if I just do it calls the on after complete, I think that should be enough to... So this should fail because, right, expected one invocation, got 0. It's always, if you do TDD, it's always a good idea to, like, in your head, think of what the test failure is going to be. Right? If you're surprised by your test result, that you don't actually understand your code, right? So now let's do a real TDD thing and just get this test to green, no matter what it takes. So I'm just going to do this. Null action, and then execute. Since it doesn't care, I'm not testing a payload yet, I'm just going to call execute. This should pass. Right, let's like running all the tests in this class is going to take really a long time. If this single test takes 4 seconds. Okay, so this is obviously incorrect. Now I need to either write another test or change this test so that this implementation is no longer sufficient. This is actually how I work. I really like the TDD flow. It works really well for me because it allows me to basically ignore every problem but the one that I'm currently testing, which helps with not getting overwhelmed. So I think I should at least verify that it was actually called with the correct payload, right? And so now the question is, like, what's the payload going to be? So in the documentation, I said that it takes... Okay, yeah, right, I forgot. So there is this function or this method called transform wizard data. Let me go. Let's go to the listener again, because this is where it's currently used. So inside this like listener that I'm trying to replace, there's this call to transform wizard data. This is basically a way for you to structure the data a bit more before handing it off to the action, because what Arcanist does internally is basically it just keeps a big old associative array, right? The keys are the names of your form fields, and the values are whatever the user submitted. And if you kind of want to structure this more, you can hook into this transform wizard data, right? So by default, it just says this data, which just returns this array. But in the documentation, I gave an example of, well, maybe you want to like have a data transfer object. Where is it? Controlling what gets passed to the action. Right, so maybe you want to say like, no, I don't want to have this stupid associative array. I want to have like a DTO with proper types, and I want to also like maybe data subscription is just an integer, right? And you want to fetch the model before handing it off to the action. That's kind of the place where you would do this. So the test, what I want to test is that what gets passed to this action is whatever the transform wizard data function returns. I think. So this should be enough to make this test fail. Right, with, and then we'll just say wizard, transform wizard data. There's a very good chance that this method, which is currently public, will no longer be public once I'm done, which will make this test fail. Because I'm trying to call a protected method, but for now that's good enough. So this should, wait, before we see the result, let's think about what I expect the error to be. I expect the error to be a, unfortunately mockery gives you kind of not that helpful error messages. It's just gonna say, I expected one assertion, but I got 0, which is actually not true. But what it means is I expected like one assertion with this payload, and I got 0 of those. So the error is going to be, I think, the same as before, like expected one invocation, but got 0. Yeah, should be called at least 1 times, but got called 0 times. Which is very confusing because it did actually get called. It just didn't get called with the payload I was expecting. I didn't even know you were there, Matthias. Okay, so to make this pass in the, well, I guess the easiest way would be to say this, right? Wait, no, that's the wrong place. Here. Okay. So I seem to be hovering around like 6 to 8 years, which means I'm basically PewDiePie. I also have the chair, I think. Okay, so this would actually do what I wanted to do. It's just that I hate this implementation. So let's think about it. I don't want to resolve. Basically, I don't want to grab stuff from the container just like randomly in the middle of a method. I think I just had an idea. Yeah. Okay, I think I have an idea. So basically the thing that's bothering me about injecting the container as a dependency isn't so much that I have the container. Well, it is. But the problem isn't that I have something that I can resolve things out of. It's that it's basically completely unconstrained what I can resolve. So if I say, like, if I implement some interface or some class whose only job it is to resolve an action, right? And I think I've seen this in a few packages before. Well, you have like a some class or some interface that's like a command handler resolver or something like that, and then one of the implementations of that can be a container something resolver. You basically narrowed the interface, right? It is no longer a thing that provides everything. It's a thing that just provides an action, right? And I can't currently think of any other implementations of this, but I don't want to rule it out, and I feel like it's a nice, I think it gives me the best of both worlds. So let's see. What's the TDD way of doing this? Since I want to, this is a refactor, right? So I want to move from green to green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do I'm going to invent some class, which means the test is going to fail. Okay, well, we won't be so strict. So I'm going to invent some interface here. Let's just call it a wizard action resolver. Action resolver. And for now, just so I don't have to do everything at once, this is going to be nullable by default. So this is going to crash because this class doesn't exist. It might actually pass. Yeah, because I'm not passing anything. So let's say there's an interface. So a wizard action resolver. And it just has a resolve action. I know this is kind of a thing doer, right? Like a verb, a noun verber. But I basically just, to me, this is a function, right? This isn't, it's a class because we're not, like, it's PHP and that's kind of the thing that we're using. But I think of this as a function, right? It's just something that I call that gives me back the action. So it's just gonna take the action class. And this is where we can introduce this, what did I call it? I called it a, what did I call it? Not an action result, a wizard action. So that thing is going to return to me. Wizard action, which also doesn't exist yet. What's the question? The constructor receives an array of resolved actions. So that would mean that every wizard would know about every action of every other wizard, right? Because a wizard is only going to have a single action. So it feels a bit, it doesn't feel much better than just injecting the container, right? I kind of want to limit what a single wizard knows about. So injecting already resolved actions, I mean, I guess you could say, like, what if it's not I don't inject an array of actions, I just inject its action, sort of at the time I knew it up. The problem I have with that is that I don't need it until the very last step. So I'm just constructing this object every single time, even though I don't need it in most of the cases. So I think like having a way to grab it once I actually need it, I think I would prefer that. So let's just see where this takes us, right? This is, if it sucks, I'm just going to delete it. But I feel like sometimes it's just a lot more useful to just try it out rather than like trying to think all the eventualities sort of abstractly. You just have to be willing to throw things away. So I have a wizard action, which is going to be an empty class for now. I just need a type, basically. All right. Oh boy, this is never going to finish. Oh. Okay, so don't care about this class yet, but I now have this type, basically, which given some action class will return a wizard action. I wish there was a way in PHP to type that this isn't just a string, right? Like it's a fully qualified name of a class. I wish there was some way to differentiate between those two things. But right now it's just a string. So, okay. Now I want to import this here. I said I want to import this here. Okay, so test should still be green because I'm not actually using it. This is usually isn't so tedious if like my saving and the tests rerun flow doesn't take fucking 5 seconds. But this is usually how I actually work. I try to stay on green test when I refactor, which means I do like weird steps like this where I inject something that's nullable by default and I don't actually use it. So the reason it's nullable by default is because otherwise every test would basically fail because this expects a third parameter, but it's only been given two. And I don't want to touch every single test at this point. So what I then want to do is basically, if my action resolver is not null, and this is a temporary thing just so I can stay on green. If it's not null, then I actually want to use it, right? So I don't care how ugly this is. So action resolver, resolve action. This pattern with the noun verb noun is kind of suboptimal, but again, I think of this as a function. And it's going to resolve the on after complete action, right? And if it's not provided, I'm going to do what I do right here. So it's going to stay the same. Then I basically move this part down here. Execute. So if I didn't mess it up, this should still work because we never actually go into this branch. Right? I'm just preparing the change I actually want to make. Yes, I do have PHP 8 running. Okay, and well, okay, this is a double negative here. So if it's not null. Yeah, maybe it's just resolve, yeah. Okay. So this still passes because this isn't actually being executed. But now what I can do is I can refactor my test to, instead of doing this, I want to actually provide a fake implementation of that. So basically my action resolver is going to be something with wizard action resolver, and it allows with null action. It's going to return the action spy. I'm still not super happy with this because now I have a mock returning a spy. But I feel like it's an improvement over just using the container directly. And returns action spy. So if I now pass this in here, the test should still pass. And then if it does, I can remove this thing. It does not. Must be of type wizard action. Oh, because this thing. Okay, I need to do this. Right, so now I can get rid of that. And again, like this is a case where I would like rerun those tests like every second right now. So I delete this line, rerun the tests. It's incredibly tedious when I'm streaming because it takes forever. But now I'm basically undoing these sort of temporary things that I did here. But I think I can't actually remove this yet because all the other tests are going to crash. I'm gonna try this. Like I need to keep this if statement because the constructor thing is still nullable. Okay, let's do like one more of these tiny refactoring steps and say, no, that doesn't work. Okay, just to make sure I understand what's going on, this should, if I actually run the tests for the entire class. a whole bunch of them should be failing now. Because action is going to be undefined in a lot of cases. Yeah. Okay, one's already enough. Maybe I can do stop on failure so I don't die of old age. Unknown option. Yeah, because it has 3 dashes instead of 2. I don't know why my terminal sometimes does this. Like, I don't even know where my cursor is right now. It's like somewhere. Where am I? What did I just delete? Okay. Dear Lord. There we go. Why is there an S? Where is... Okay. Wait, didn't I delete that? Okay. Undefined variable action. Yeah. I mean, we can do this. Just so I don't have too many things crashing at once. And then I need to... I already have a... So while this is running... While this is running, I want to... I forgot what I wanted to do. Oh yeah. So in my test I already have, I think... Oh no, I don't. I was hoping that I already had like some helper method to create like a wizard that would fill in all these parameters with like fakes. I'm actually not convinced that I don't have that. Create. Nope. Make wizard? Nope. Okay, well shit. Let's see how many tests are actually failing. Okay, no tests are failing, but the next step I want to do is I want to make this a required parameter, which will now basically cause every test to fail. So I need to, unfortunately, provide this everywhere. So some other way I can do this. Because there's a lot of tests in here. So none of these tests actually really care about this. Like only the tests that deal with sort of the last step in a wizard will end up ever trying to call this thing. But I still need to provide it in a constructor, unfortunately. Yeah, but even if I do that, wait, why is this thing still there? Even if I create like a helper like this, I would still have to replace all of these explicit new calls, right? But I think that is actually the way to go. So what I'm going to do is... So now you know why it takes me so long to ever fucking publish anything. I want some like create wizard, and I want to parameterize this because I know I have a bunch of variations throughout this class, this test file. So I need to parameterize the wizard class, and then I have a bunch of optional ones where it's basically the fake wizard repository, or sorry, the wizard repository. And if I don't provide it, I'm just gonna basically do this, right? But this allows me to like pass in a custom one if I need for a test. Wizard repository, which is null by default. It also needs a response renderer. Man. I'm really picky about long lines anyway, but having like font size 1000 makes it even worse. I hope this is like extremely readable, because it is freaking gigantic. This is the presentation mode in PHP Storm. And then lastly, that's the new thing. I need the, oh, I forgot what I call it, action resolver thing. Yeah. So basically what I want to do is returns a wizard. And let me think. So the repository is going to be, so right, I either pass in a specific one, or I'm going to call this, right? So repository, what's the fancy, like, is it that? Like, if repository isn't null, then do like this create wizard repository for this class with no data. Right. Oh yeah, name parameters. Wizard class is wizard class, and then the renderer is, if I don't have one, it's going to be a fake response renderer. And the resolver, if I don't have, okay, what I'm going to do in this case, I think I'm just going to fake it and say, like, if, okay, let's use all the new PHP features. If the resolver is null, then it will return a new class that implements the actual resolver interface. Oh, this is gonna be beautiful. And I'm gonna hate this in like 5 minutes, but right now I think this is hilarious. And now it's going to return a mock. Right? Well, I can just return new wizard action, I think. No, this will crash because I expect wizard action to have a method called execute. So for now, let's just return a mock. I don't really care. Wizard action. Actually, is a mock going to crash if I didn't set up any expectations? Let's use a spy there, a bit more forgiving. Right, and then finally, I will say new wizard class and pass in all these things. And this is a hell of a helper. Okay, let's see what things I have messed up. Let's see if I use this for my current test, if it still works. Looks Java. Yes, Marco, it would, but I don't want to do that right now. You know what? Just for you, I have this to-do list. I'm gonna add it here. What's it called? Create wizard repository. So Marco is happy. All right, cool. This is going to be part of the commit history now. Right. So let's take our test, the calls the action, and instead of doing all of this crap, well, I still need this crap, but then I'm going to say create wizard, and it is a test wizard. And I want to override the resolver. I'm really curious. This might, no, this crashes. I'm pretty sure that this crashes. Oh no, I used this. The reason I thought it might crash is because in order for me to like call update, the wizard actually needs to exist, right? So the repository will try and look up the wizard by this ID. So I need to make sure that it's like seeded, right? Which is what this create wizard repository thing does. It basically just seeds this fake repository with so that it'll actually find the wizard. So let's see. The funny thing is, I actually talk like this to myself even when I'm not streaming. So this is just how I usually work, except that everything is like 10 times as slow. Okay, so this test should still, what is going on? It should still pass. Yeah, okay. And now begins the fun of replacing all these things. I think there's no way around this. There's a lot of tests, man. Oh boy. Okay, because this is boring to watch, let me think if I can do anything else and maybe do that off stream. The problem is this is kind of, I can't really implement the solution that I want unless I know that the action resolver will always be there, because I don't want to have the stupid if condition. Right. So if this was a compiled language, this would actually force me to make sure that execute exists, right? Because I've typed in this thing to resolve something of type wizard action, and then I'm calling a method that doesn't exist on it. So this to me is reason enough, like TDD wise, is reason enough to actually make sure that wizard actually has that method. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to be an abstract method, because you have to provide it. Public function execute. So for now, I feel like no, I'm not. I don't want to do too much on this class right now. So I'm just gonna make sure things don't explode on me. Okay. Well, no, it got even worse. Okay, because I need to make sure this is a. Are you happy now? Thank you. Okay, this needs to be mixed because transform wizard data can basically return whatever, right? Yeah, so I think there's no real way around doing this really annoying thing. So this create wizard. I can't even like search and replace this because this call can look so different. This is renderer. What's the renderer and repository? Oh my god. Okay, well, just so I have some sense of progress, I'm going to delete this if statement just so I can see everything fail. Right? I'm going to do this. And now a whole bunch of tests are going to fail. And I'm going to fix them one at a time. I wish there was some way in PHP Unit to say like rerun failed tests. You can order them somehow. There's like an order by defect or something like that, but that never seemed to work for me. Okay, so calls the on after complete hook. That is not. Oh, okay, yeah, I know how I can. No, I can't. I can't fake my way through it because what I actually want to do is this. So usually I would actually go through all the tests before I do that, but that only really works if my feedback loop is a lot tighter than 4 seconds. So let's replace these calls for half an hour. Right. This is interesting. I didn't. I have to complete a hook. I did not expect. This test seems so far down. Oh, because I have a filter. God damn it. Why did I do that? Okay. Wait. In what order is it executing these tests? Anyways, so this create. You know what? There is a good chance that I might be able to search and replace my way through this at least somewhat, because I think I have quite a few. Don't need that. I have quite a few instantiations that are all the same, like this one. I think it's. Let's just try. Anything's better than what I'm doing right now. So let's replace in files. Wait, no, not in all files. In this file in particular. Wizard test. Why can't I? There it is. Oh no, I have to do it. I've rebound the original key binding for replace. That's why I always have to go through the menu. So maybe I can do this. Oh, thanks for fucking up my indentation. Wow. Oh, this is even worse than I expected. Please. Oh my god. I think these are indented too much. There should at least be one result because it literally copy-pasted it. It might have to do with like how it's it's because of the, isn't it because of the leading spaces? Fuck my life. Okay. I'm debating just switching to doing the wizard action tests now and then do this off stream, because this is going to be insane. Like, let's at least think through what else would be necessary, which tests might be necessary, and also if this is actually if this was already the full implementation change. So inside here, so I tested that the action gets called. I tested that it got the correct payload. Now the next thing I need to do is that on after complete is actually called using this payload. Because this is a bit iffy because this is a protected method, and usually like you're not supposed to test internal functions, but this is a protected method, but it's kind of the API for the package user, right? Because they're like overriding these methods. So like it is actually the public API, even though the method isn't public. So I kind of have to test this because that's what I'm claiming in the documentation. And then there's a bunch of tests that kind of needs to test error handling here. Like, what if this returns like a failed result? In this case, I don't want to fire this event. This should not be called. And instead, we want to redirect probably to the last step with an error, right? So there's a bunch of tests that are still missing here. But I think I'll save that for next stream. Wow, there's already a next stream. Holy shit. So how many people are still there? And then I also, since right now I only defined this interface. There's no implementation for this yet. So if I were to try and use this, like for example, if I were to try and refresh my thing now, it would crash because it says like, I can't resolve this interface. It's probably going to crash for a bunch of reasons, but this, okay, syntax error, fair enough. But it would crash here. So the package needs to provide a default implementation, and then it needs to be configurable in the config. And the default implementation will be basically the Laravel container resolver version of this, right? So yeah, just so I can do more interesting things than replacing a bunch of test files. Let's think about this wizard action thing. So you're supposed to extend this, right? So this kind of already, to me, implies that this should be abstract, because there's no sensible default implementation I can give for execute, right? That is literally what the wizard does. But I also want to provide a few convenience methods, like I've written, like this success, right? Which is just a wrapper that returns like a successful wizard result, so you don't have to deal with like this nonsense. I've done something similar for the steps already. Like there's a wizard step, and it like there's a step result, right? Which is basically just a it's like a result object, right? It has like a success and a fail state, and then the wizard checks like what the state is. So yeah, let's switch to that. Let's do a wizard action test. Action test. So I think this can just be a PHP unit test because it doesn't really need anything package specific, which means it doesn't have to like boot up the entire thing. This one. Okay, so this is actually, I'm not even sure if there's much I can test there, because this class doesn't even do anything. It's more like an interface, really. The only reason it's not an interface is because I wanted to provide these like convenience methods. I guess there could be two things. There could be an interface that says like this is what a wizard action should look like, and you can also extend from this like this class that the package provides to like provide you with some nice things. So is there actually like a useful test I can write here? I think the more interesting test really, well, okay, yeah, I think I know, because again, I'm basically testing like these protected methods, but from the point of view of a user of the package, it's the public API, right? So this is kind of a weird situation. So what I want to do is I'm actually not going to start with this one. I'm going to start with the result test, because I'm going to need that to actually write assertions for this. And if you have no idea what I mean, then you have to wait. Wait and see. So this is, what I call it? Wizard result? I thought I renamed that. I think it's called action result. Which one makes more sense? I think action result. Because the wizard result is basically the redirect. So action result, test. And this is going to be a very simple test. So, oh my god, extends test case. So the reason I'm even implementing these types of classes is just because I want to have like proper types. Like I'm the kind of person who like wishes PHP was like actually like properly typed, as in like compile time typed. I don't want to deal with like unstructured arrays everywhere, because you then have to like, you just gotta know that it has this key, man. And it's even worse if the framework like depends on this array that the user has to return, like needs to have the specific key. That's just like asking for trouble. So it returns a payload or a successful result. And so basically, what I'm imagining is so after I'm done, this can literally be anything. So let's just do like value 1 and result get key 1. And then have another one. So, and this happens if I do result. Let's just have a static constructor for this. So it's action result. Let's keep it consistent with the step result. It is success and failed success. So if I call it a static constructor, with like this payload, can't hit my buttons. And that's basically it. So if I create a successful response, I get back. I think I can then like grab these things from the resulting object. I feel like there's a test missing before that, but I'm gonna get to that. So, you know what? Let's risk it. Let's do the PHP Unit Watcher. Shoutouts to Spazi. Action result. So no class action result. Yeah. I think this deserves a namespace because there's going to be more things in there. Action result. Wait. Oh, the namespace is called. I said the namespace. Why can't I rename this? Oh my god. Action. And then there's a class called action result. Right. Yeah, this PHP Unit Watcher. If it worked, it's really nice. And it's not the fault of the package. Okay, so yeah, no success method. So let's fix that. And now it says I'm trying to call get on null. Right. So in true TDD fashion, I will simply... So, okay, the first error is it's calling get on null, and I don't want it to return null. So let's actually say that I expect this to be an instance of action result, just to force myself to implement it properly. Right, return new self. And now it's going to say no method get on action result. Right. And now it says null is not equal to value 1. Yeah. Okay, so what's the least amount of code I can write here? Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is true TDD. This is true TDD. If key is equal to value 1. I'm just gonna fucking hardcode this shit. I actually do this, by the way. Like, except that usually it's much faster because I don't have to wait like a million years. Oh, I swapped it. This is supposed to be key 1, and this is value 1. All right, so this is obviously shit. So let's refactor. So I have a constructor here. I want it to be private, and yeah, it's just going to have like a payload. And then instead of doing this, I'm going to do turn this payload key. Does this work? No, it doesn't work because I'm not passing it along. So that should work. So I can now get rid of this. There's really no telling what this returns, so it's going to be mixed. Okay, so let's do another test. In fact, the first test should have been it can return a successful result, because I need to be able to check that. So basically, assert true that result. I think it's just success. What did I call it in the successful? Right, and this is supposed to be true if I just don't care about the payload. If I do this. Okay, this needs to be nullable. No method success. Wait, what? Assert Tuesday. Result successful is in fact not Tuesday. So no method success. All right, let's create that. And again, null is not equal to true. So let's give it true. Right? And now let's say it can return a failed result. So I can't just hardcode it. If I do like it was failed, then this should be false. Like now you get at least some sense of my workflow, because this is like being fairly quick. Usually it's like instant, so this is not nearly as tedious as it might look right now. So that doesn't exist, so let's make it doesn't returns null, right? Yeah. In fact, I think right, so and now true is not equal to false. Yeah. So now we actually need to pass along if it's successful or not. Successful, private, and this is always going to be true here. That's why I want to have the static constructor and have this be private, so like you didn't have to worry about these details that the first parameter is like a Boolean. It's just, no, it's action result and it's success. And this is always false. Right, and now, instead of this, I return the successful. Okay, so one thing I actually want to do. Oh, hey Christoph, how the tables have turned. Okay, holy shit, I've been streaming for an hour and a half. Okay. So I'm gonna stream until I either pass out from exhaustion, I starve, my computer catches fire, or my wife gets pissed and gets me. Whatever happens first. So, yeah. A couple things. This should probably be in here. Does make sense in a payload test. And then I don't really like that this is mandatory, because what if I just want to return a success? And there's nothing I want to return, right? What is this problem here? Oh, screw. I hate these. I don't want to add PHP Storm specific annotations. All right, and so the next one is, so in a success case, I want to pass along the payload. If it's failed, I actually just want to pass along an error message. Right, so this test name bothers me. Because this isn't really testing that it's returning a payload, but it's more like testing this whole get API. So it's more a let's just leave it like this for now, but it's kind of bothering me. So it returns an error. It's not really returning an error, it like provides it, right? You can grab it, but the return value is still an action result. This is the type of shit I worry about, right? It returns an error. Let's just see what past Kai did. Yeah, I said pass along. Okay, fair enough. It can pass along an error message for an error massage. An error message for a failed result. Right, so it's basically if I have this, but now I want to be able to pass along some message. Assert equals. I think just an error function I think would be nice. Yeah, it's the same here. Let's stick with that. So this is going to fail because there's no method called error. Right. And now this is going to fail because null is not equal to message. And so let's give it a message. So like in TDD fashion, this is obviously incorrect, right? But I if I don't have a test that proves that this is wrong, I'm not allowed to change it. Which actually isn't entirely true, because one of the steps of TDD is like the refactor step, and part of that step is remove duplication between test and implementation. And this is very clearly duplication between test and implementation, right? It's the same string. So technically, I'm allowed to to refactor this now. But I actually, since I want to make sure that this can be null. So if you don't pass anything along, it's supposed to be null. Let's do this one first. So in an error case, I'll pass along a message. Which I need to accept. Message is a shitty word. It's called error message. Okay, so now, I need to think about this actually. Do I want to return a message here or the exception? Because I'm thinking that the way you would use this is in this method, like you would check action result, or rather the package would check it before it even calls your method. So inside this whole, like, this is the last step, blah 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 handling, I would check that is the result of the action call a success. If yes, then I go like this way. If not, there's no point in even calling this, and I can just like handle this inside the package. The reason I'm thinking about this is, if this is an error message, then this is probably what's going to be displayed to the user, which means the action would be the thing that provides the error message, like the client-facing error message, which isn't usually what I do. Like if you think of the wizard as like your controller, this is usually where I would decide, like, what do I actually like display to the user, right? The other parts of the code, they just throw an exception, and then the controller catches it and says, okay, like I will translate this to like this error message. But in this case, since where this would happen is, this is the wrong class. Abstract wizard, come on. Abstract wizard. Since where this would happen is here. So basically, what I would do is I would say like, okay, here's a result, and if the result is like not successful, then I don't even do this, right? I will just like return response renderer redirect with error. So this means that in that case, whatever this error message is going to be displayed to the user, which I think is fine, honestly. I think I'm overcomplicating things. Yeah, so let's just, and it also works the same way with the steps, I just realized. So let's do this. I hate long lines. Okay, so everything's going to crash because it's not providing this thing here. So let's provide a default. So too few arguments, too failed. I don't actually like this. This shouldn't be mandatory, or should it? Should I force the user to provide an error message? I have the power. If I just remove this question mark, you would be forced to provide an error message. I kind of like the idea of forcing like the user to like provide proper error messages, but I didn't actually do it for the steps, and I want this to be consistent. So This is going to be optional. And this is not going to be an empty string, but it's going to be null. Right. And now, instead of returning this, we can return this error message, which does this. Right. I mean, wait. Oh, right. Because there's no default. Well, let's just do this. Like I say, I think that is basically it for this class. It's a really boring class. So the reason I needed this, or I wanted to do it first, is because now I can actually use it to test this action, wizard action class. So if we go back to, oh man, I haven't committed it forever, but I want to commit this weird state. So I'm just going to be a bad programmer and just ignore that I ever saw this diff. What time is it? It's okay. Right. So let's go back to this wizard action test, which I deleted. Okay. So wizard action test. So this is going to be, wow. Dear Lord. No. This one. So basically what I want to test are these like convenience methods. Like this, where is it? Where is it? This stuff, this success or this failure, right? So you can use that in your action, so you don't have to like muck around with these wizard result objects yourself. That's really the only sensible test I can even write. But the only way to really test this is because this will return like this result thing, right? So my only assertion will be, if I call success, I get back a successful result with the correct payload. That's why I needed this this other class first. So I can return a successful result. Yeah, like these aren't the most exciting tests, I admit. What's wrong here? Is it double L? Really? No. Oh, double S. But they still, like, the thing I like about TDD is that I can basically turn my brain off, right? There's usually a very clear next step. And I've kind of like accept that I don't have to solve every problem at once. And so like I do these things where I write something that I already know is not what I want it to be in the end, because I trust the process, right? Like I trust that if I do this and I keep writing tests that force me to like implement this more, I will eventually arrive at a good solution. And it might not even be the solution that I originally had in mind because I hadn't considered certain edge cases. So in this case, the assertion would be, first of all, if I do this, then the result should be successful. where do I get result from? I get it from... okay, now this is interesting because I'm testing a protected method. Like, what am I actually calling this on? I think what I'm going to do is... So I'll have some action here, and then I'll call execute. And I'm not going to provide a payload because I don't care here. And the question is, where's the action coming from? For now, I'm just going to do this. This is one of those cases where I already know this is wrong, but I just want to get the test to work, so I don't have to keep like too much context in my head, right? I just see like, does the test still pass? Okay, great. I'm just going to new this up because even though I know that I want this to be abstract eventually, right? So this will break at some point. Now let's try this again, but instead of actual result, we will do wizard action. Okay, so there's no method execute. No, there is, but too few arguments. Does that work? Apparently. Does mixed include null, or do I have to do this? No, that doesn't make sense. Okay. Right, so successful on null because it's not actually returning the thing I wanted to return. This is supposed to return an action result. Right, so we'll do action result success. Wait, no, that's exactly what I don't want to do. Okay, now, right, I'm kind of getting confused here. This whole approach doesn't work because I'm not trying to test the execute method. What I want to do instead is... Okay, fuck it, I'm just going to skip a few steps ahead. This is supposed to be abstract, right? This is the thing you need to implement. What I actually want to test is these helper methods I want to provide. So I can't new up this thing. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to have an anonymous class here. Extend action result. No, not result. Wizard action. And then to test the thing I actually want to test, I want to use the success method that I haven't implemented yet. This is what I want to do. Right. Okay, so yeah, there's no method called success, and now I do this function success. Right. So this needs to return an action result, and I want it to return a action result success. Right, this is really just so you, as the consumer of the package, you don't have to know so many things about these internal types. You can like use this sort of API. And then I guess this is a very similar test to the action result test, but I think I'm okay with that. Passes along the payload. So I want to say, like, what if I do, I don't know, payload, and if I execute it, like I want this to be the same thing. Oh, this should equal value. This should fail because I'm not passing it along yet. Right, so this accepts like this is more like a proxy almost for just using their class directly. So it's like this, and then I pass that along. Right, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the failure case, and I think I'm going to stop for today. And maybe if I'm motivated enough, I might do the stupid search and replace thing off screen. So it can return a failed result. And in this case, what did I call it? Failure or failed? Failed. But that doesn't really make sense in here, right? Like execute, return this. This should probably be failure. I'm not returning a fail. That doesn't make sense. So this failure, I'm not passing anything along, and it should be a unsuccessful is success. No, it's just successful. Right? So failure doesn't exist yet. So let's do this. Failure. Return action result. Failed. And then do the last one for the error message. Wait, this is the wrong test file. Action test, right. It passes along the error message for a failed result. Basically the same thing, except that we do like error and then we expect the error of the result to equal this thing. Which it doesn't, of course, so we pass it along. And there you go. Okay, so now you can extend this class, and it provides these methods. Yeah, I think this is fine. Let's look at my documentation again. Does this kind of match? I'm not sure how this type hint would behave if you were to like type in this in implementation. I might just have to get rid of it completely. Okay. So I think this is where I'm going to stop for today, because before I can do anything interesting again, I have to get all these tests to work again. So I think I'm going to do that off stream, and then I might just stream again tomorrow, maybe, and we can actually do more interesting things, like implementing the all the error handling and yeah, the like change this type of all this stuff to the implementation I actually want it to be, because right now it's sort of like in a weird in-between state. So yeah, cool. There are 2 people who are still left. So I don't know who you are. You are now. I now officially have 2 favorite people. unless it's Marco, then I only have one favorite person. Okay. Yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this was interesting. I knew this wasn't the most exciting stream because it didn't anticipate that I have to like refactor a million tests. But I think the next one will be a bit more interesting. There's still a lot of stuff I need to do. Like all this stuff I want to do before I publish it. And some of these things I think could be interesting. Like cleaning up unfinished wizards, that is an interesting one. And the whole middleware configuration thing could also be interesting. Like writing tests for these things, I think is interesting. Okay, cool. So thanks for watching, and I'll post on Twitter next time I plan on streaming. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.